This is not the moment to be seduced by small thinking. It's not the moment to be seduced by small thinking. That's why I'm here. That's why I was glad to accept the invitation from Jerry and from all of you. Let me explain to you what I mean. So back in 2007, I was the U.S. Attorney, Republican, Colorado. I published an article with the DOJ's approval in March of '07. Fred alluded to this. Repeal Oliphant. All right, I got clearance from the DOJ. They forgot. So I went through kind of a long, thorough investigation as to how I was able to do that, who approved it. But I was out there already. It appeared in the Federal Lawyer. So there was this flare going up saying, Oliphant doesn't make sense, hurts public safety, nobody's being deputized the way they should. Tribes are not getting the support the Supreme Court mused about back in '78 when the majority said, don't worry if there are jurisdictional problems, they can cross-deputize, it'll be fine. Go through '07. Byron Dorgan's the chair of the Senate Indian Affairs Committee. I get a letter. We know that you're conducting a pilot project in Colorado with the Southern Ute tribe. And Janelle Dowdy, who was the head at that time of the Justice and Regulatory Department. We know that you have cross-deputized what ended up being more than 200 tribal, state, and local police officers. We got the curriculum from the BIA, Office of Justice Services. Janelle and I, in my office, sat down. We updated it. It was about 25 to 30 years out of date. We started training police officers. We got permission. We got the Indian Police Academy up to certify the exams, and we just started deputizing people. And guess what? We got so many people in less than a year out enforcing the laws, working with the two tribes, Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute, which I now represent as special counsel. We had so many people out there doing investigations. We had to add an entire new position in the U.S. Attorney's office in Durango, Colorado, just to do the cases that we weren't doing domestic violence and other cases because we had no one who could make a lawful arrest. And as later testified, we had any number of instances where individuals we had trained who were deputized, tribal police officers, could show up at a crime scene, they could secure the scene, they could do the case, and the feds could take it as we did. And we began to see cases and convictions. And it had an effect on the surrounding jurisdictions. They started to realize that they didn't know so much, and they had a lot to offer about their neighbors just across the Ute line. So it's fall of '07, and I get this letter from Byron Dorgan. We want you to testify to the Senate about this program, the success, and we want Southern Ute to come and you guys testify together because we're thinking about doing a bill. So I went out to Washington and I met with Chairman Dorgan and his staff. We came up with a pilot project in '07. Let's repeal Oliphant on one reservation. We'll do it at Southern Ute. And we will have full, not just special violence, domestic jurisdiction, or whatever the jargon is. Let's just repeal it, and we will have a test case where we can see with the tribal court that will be fair. We'll have all these people have been deputized anyway. We've got robust enforcement going on. Let's see what we can do to really enforce the law and have true cooperation between a tribe and the surrounding jurisdictions. And let's actually have full territorial jurisdiction for everything, over everybody, native, non-native. Everybody. Do you realize we actually drafted a bill to do that in '07? Not just VAWA, but a bill to do the whole thing, the whole repeal. Well, two things happened in the fall of '07. The bill was drafted. My administration, in which I was privileged to serve, asserted executive privilege. I couldn't testify. That was the end of that. The bill we couldn't get a Democrat vote beyond Dorgan and two others. We couldn't get a Republican vote. We couldn't get it out of committee. We tried. It was a rough time. So I came back to Colorado. I was very beaten down, and I was prone to a little depression and bitterness, I confess. I asked Charles Wilkinson, my mentor, to take me out to dinner. How many of you know who Charles Wilkinson is? Blood struggle, Indian law expert, one of the founders of the modern classroom federal Indian law discipline, along with a lot of water law and other things Charles has done. He's a wonderful inspiration. And I said, Charles, we failed at this. We didn't get anywhere. And he thought for a long time. He said, yeah, I know, I've been following it. I've been talking to people, talked to a lot of people about you and about what was going on. Talked to John Echohawk, talked to all these people. You know, Troy, it takes 7 years. I said, what do you mean? He said, anything worth doing in Indian country takes 7 years. I said, well, why 7 years? I don't know. It just takes 7 years. And that made me think. And sure enough, I left office. Obama comes in, not my party. Okay? I'm gone. But Dorgan remembers me. I didn't apply for the Indian Law and Order Commission. I nominated somebody else. I ended up serving on the thing. Harry Reid ends up appointing me. My son, I thought, was calling me up right before Christmas in 2010, December 24th. I get this call, Harry Reid. I don't know Harry Reid. It was really Harry Reid. He said, you want to serve on this commission? And once I got done saying, yeah, Alex, this is really funny. You sound a lot like Harry Reid, I admit. True story. He said, no, this really is Senator Reid. And I realized it was him. And I said, well, you do understand, Senator, that I'm a Republican. Well, we all got crosses we got to bear. So I end up on this commission, and I end up being chairman of this group. So the Egyptian non-native Republican is the chair of the majority Democrat group. And guess what? I get to testify. And guess what? Everybody I go and talk to says, no VAWA. This is, we did Tribal Law and Order Act, right? I was told that wasn't going to go anywhere. Then it was like, no, this Oliphant idea, Republicans in the House, scary, blah, blah, blah. I hear it all the time. Whatever, I heard the people last night complaining, oh, Trump, whatever. I know, elections happen. Get over it. I've lost elections too, any number of times, believe me. I'm a Republican. We lost our own election, right? Earlier on, I was a Christie guy. I get this thing. So we end up, amazingly enough, having VAWA. All these people work on VAWA. But I'm told over and over, we're on the Law and Order Commission. We can't be supporting VAWA. It's crazy. It's not going to get through the House. You'll lose credibility. Anyway, of course, we helped out with the effort. We worked hard on it. It was part of our recommendations, along with everybody here and a lot of other great people all over the nation. And guess what? Remember, it passed on suspension of the rules. That means that you had to get 2/3 of the vote in the House side and no amendments, but it still passed. So we get Tribal Law and Order Act, we get VAWA. Secret. I was in the room with Senator Murkowski. God bless her. I respect her. But she said, I'll support VAWA. I was in there with John Dossett, a bunch of other people, as long as Alaska's not in it. Okay, so you'll support it, but that's what she did, right? And we know this is a matter of record. It is what it is. All right? So Indian Law and Order Commission goes around Alaska. We spent 1 month in Alaska. 1 month. You know how hard it is to see anything in a month, even with a 9-member commission going all over Alaska to see 229 federally recognized tribes. I think we made it to about 85 of them, which was pretty good, thanks to the Alaska troopers who flew us in and out, and a lot of volunteers who took us in snow machines and everywhere else. And I'll never forget being in Fort Yukon in December, and it was minus 37 degrees, and we had 350 people show up. And I'll never forget the elder who stood up and said, she was speaking in her language, and she said, I'm going to do something. And she said, I want all the women in this room who've been sexually assaulted to stand up. And every single person stood up. Everybody stood up. As far as you can see in that room, everybody stood up. And you realize what an issue, what a tragedy this is. So we did the best we could. We went around Alaska. We worked with a lot of people. And everyone told me, I remember meeting with the governor, who wouldn't shake my hand, not the governor anymore. this was not going to happen in Alaska. Well, guess what? We were all at the hearing where Senator Murkowski said, hey, I support this. And remember, we had in 2014, we had the VAWA extension for Alaska. And I could go on and on and on. Now, I look forward to the day where we actually do the rest of the Law and Order Commission report. We did a lot of the state law stuff in Alaska. We've got other things that are taking place. The DOJ, God bless them, I love the Department of Justice, they didn't do a lot of the things that they needed to do in this administration. They still don't make U.S. attorneys accountable the way they should. They act like if a tribal prosecutor declines a case, when they didn't get the law enforcement sensitive information they need to make a decision, that's okay. But it's not. And they shouldn't be counting that as a case declination, with all due respect. And I could go on and on. I'm a Navajo official. I'm on the Judicial Conduct Committee. I can be hushkeji. I can be all scolding. But the point is to just be able to say there are a lot of things that we haven't done that we should be doing that are in that report. But the big one is full restoration of jurisdiction. I think you just heard a great presentation, and there are many of you who've had this experience. I know I practice in tribal court all the time. I come here from being in tribal court in Zifjin, a remote district in the Navajo Nation near Pinyon, where I just won. My non-Indian client just won, I'm in tribal court all the time. I'm a boots in the dirt lawyer. Tribal courts are great. I'm treated very well in tribal courts. I can't remember one where I wasn't treated better than I deserve. And we're getting to a point where we just have to remember that anything is possible. So here's what I'd say in terms of not being seduced by small thinking. Number one, don't be bitter. Anybody who didn't get the result they wanted in the election. I understand, I respect that. I'm not making light of it. But, there's a lot of opportunity too. Don't write anybody off. Number two, to some extent, it doesn't matter, right? Because look at the changes that have occurred in the landscape. Not just the laws that we talked about, but look at some of the other things that are happening today. Biggest Obama legacy item, in my view, tribal consultation is getting teeth. Has anybody noticed? Has anybody noticed how different it is when you practice now? And you're not just looking at guidance from a president, but you're looking at that agency, that office. What is their tribal consultation policy? Are they actually engaging? Are they doing the things on a government-to-government basis that ought to be done? If you doubt what I'm saying, think about the case in the District of Wyoming, the case that Judge Skavdal decided on the hydraulic fracturing or fracking rule. That was the Jewell case, Wyoming versus Jewell, last year. This is a case where the district court had to decide whether, now you may not like this, I represented tribes who didn't like what the administration did. This was a challenge to the administration's restrictions on hydraulic fracturing, okay? My clients were tribes that frack. There are tribes that frack. They use it to generate revenues for their governments. It's their sovereign prerogative to do so. And we said we were never consulted with government. And guess what? The judge agreed with us. And they struck down those rules in part because the BLM did not consult with tribes about them. Extraordinary. They took the BLM's detailed guidelines that had just been issued and scrutinized them and realized they hadn't followed them. Set aside the facts of that case. Think of all the different departments. I'm dealing with one with the NIH right now, where Tribe is my client. They have an NIH policy, detailed policy. You can litigate that stuff. Tribes have ability to get traction in the discussion they did not have 4, 5, 6 years ago. It's a huge change. People don't see it yet, but mark my words, the consultation piece has taken hold. And whatever happens in this administration, I have found, just as a student, since 1971, consultation, sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it goes slower in terms of what the federal government's willing to listen to and how they're willing to be accountable or not. But it either goes fast or it goes slow. It does not typically go backward because tribes don't let it, right? They're fierce, you advocate, you're tough. And that's the second part, which is not an Obama legacy, but it's a legacy of a whole confluence of things. Standing Rock. Standing Rock is my observation, seeing this unfold for the last 2.5 to 3 years. It's not just one issue with some pipeline. It's not. I've done a lot of pipeline projects for tribes, for companies over the years. It's not a pipeline issue. This is a movement issue about how people are treated, how nations are treated. And it has such a portent for what is going to be expected in the future from everybody, right? Not just on this issue, not just with those 3 states, not just with the law of how you permit a crude oil pipeline or something like that. What it means to actually have a link, a sacred link. I've described it as when the person tells you this is their sacred place, and their elders tell you that in their teachings. If you're not familiar with that, you need to think, what if they ran a pipeline through the Sistine Chapel? Would you be concerned? Would that upset you? What if they ran a road through the center of the Temple Mount? Would this be an issue? Would you want to have some discussion about how you do that? Maybe there's a different way to do that. Maybe you don't go there. That's the kind of discussion that is unfolding in a whole generation of people, friends, relatives. Probably everybody in this room knows someone, has a relative who's gone up there. You go up there to the camps and see it. It's a remarkable thing that's happening. It's not a political thing so much as it's actually a generational movement, a defining moment, if you will. So there's a very strong foundation heading into where we are today. We've got a roadmap for what we can do. Some of it's been talked about. I would just simply say, it's not the time to think small. There's no reason to think small. The only way you think small is if you give up and you don't try. There was no objective reason. I defy anybody to say in 2007 that they thought we would have what we now have now with VAWA and its extension to Alaska. I know it's small, but it was not thought to be possible back in the day. And I think that there is so much, if we just think bigger about what can actually be achieved. Don't worry about fighting. Don't worry about why did this happen. Just focus on what you do best. And so what I want to do is I want to thank every individual person here. You know, I've worked with many of you. I've served with and under many of you. I truly appreciate and admire what you do. I appreciate the tribute to Ashlyn Mike. I met with her family a couple days after that tragedy. I know that every one of you has a story, many stories to tell. And I truly appreciate how you've decided to give your hearts and your life to this great challenge that we have. And I just encourage you, don't give up on any of this. You know, think about the teachings that you have. Things come and go, but those values, life is built from the grassroots up. It's never imposed from the top down. Thank you.